Welcome everybody to our first EMA Market Spotlight. We're going to dive deeper into different markets in Europe and the rest of the world, starting today with Germany. I am Dennis, I'm EMA's event manager. And EMA is, if you don't know, we're an umbrella organization of the manager organizations within Europe. We today have 4 great panelists, 4 great speakers. We have Hannes Tronsberg from Future Demand. We have Sigrid Herrenbrück from the Bundesverband Musikindustrie. We have Anton Teichmann from AOK Management and TESSYSCHULZ from TESSYSCHULZ Management. We are a little short on time on some of our speakers due to other engagements, so we're going to jump right into Hannes' presentation.
Yeah, great. Hi, everyone. It's great to speak to you and meet you. I'm looking forward to questions as well. What I will share a little bit about today is what we at Future Demand have been building and how we look at data for the industry. And our core mission and goal is always to help the industry to sell more tickets, get more people back into concert venues and clubs and stadiums, if so. And yeah, today it's about better data for more fans. And this picture is probably something you're quite familiar or sadly sometimes familiar with, that not every seat is sold and still too many seats are unsold for a long time. It's still kind of an issue for the broader industry. And there's one big reason for that, and that's actually competition. So we see, and in this case, not only competition in a way that we look at competition from other events, which is also one big reason, yeah, double the amount of events on the market for sale currently or in 2022 in comparison to 2019. But we also see competition regarding travel, dining, friends, family. Everything is basically attention-based, so everything you could do in your free time. And all of these kind of different things increased massively. Data from the US, for instance, alone 400,000 more weddings happened in 2022 than in 2019. Just think about that. A lot of people traveling for a weekend, and not only 2 or 3 people usually, but perhaps hundreds. So this is a lot of time which went to other activities. So the question is, how can you solve that? Or what's kind of relevant? How can you deal with that? And the answer in our case, how we kind of solve that is with data. But I want to make one point before we jump into what data is actually valuable, is to have one big focus or spotlight on what is good data in our understanding. And when we look at data, we quite often rely heavily on survey data still. And those survey data has some biases. So recency bias, for instance, or you know that you ask people something and they will respond. So usually we tend to answer in a way that we frame ourselves more sophisticated than we actually are. Also a very known fact that if you look at ratings for certain TV channels and then compare it to a survey, the survey shows that RTV should have much more viewers than they actually have. So the important part is take away from behavior sciences, look at behavior data, so how people actually behave, what they actually buy and what they purchase. So what we built is something where we aggregate from around 100 external data sources up to 1,000 characteristics per event. So we can describe a performance with around 1,000 characteristics. This is something like look at how popular artists are and how popularity changed over time, but also what other events are happening at the same time, how easy it is to get to the venue, how many bars are open afterwards. All these different factors which play into the general experience of people buying tickets and coming to a concert. It's not only about what happens in the club, in the music club in the end, and what you're listening to, but it's also all the context around it. And the second important point we discovered is, how do you cluster your customers? How do you understand why they buy in the first place? We leverage the playbook of Netflix in this case, how they develop their recommendation engine. So how they decide what to show to you. And we use that same logic to apply for live entertainment. Why is that important? Because with all that together, we can achieve with AI today and machine learning, we can achieve a lot of automation, which in the end will help you sell more tickets and target your audiences better. We can today predict potential. We can predict how many people buy a ticket 2 years in advance with an accuracy level of above 90%. So you know how many people will actually buy a show, and you can tweak it. Different dates, different pricing, different support act, all these kind of things. You can see how that will change outcome. We can predict behavior, so we know which audiences are coming and which won't. And with predict action, we can see it, okay, what message do you need to use for a certain audience group so they actually buy the ticket or an additional ticket. And you don't have to do that all manually. Most of that can be automated. And then it goes even one step further. You can look at, we can predict performance today, so we can measure when we launch hundreds of different ads and see what ads perform best and what not. We can disable the ones which don't perform well, something you could do manually as well, but it just usually takes too much time. So in this case, making that an automated process as well helps you tailor campaigns to actually sell more tickets in the end. And predict results, we perhaps all know that measuring campaign success is much more difficult today than it was in the past. And the question was always, how do we are able to get back to that? Or sometimes you don't have access to that data because you sell, let's say on Eventim or Ticketmaster, for instance, you don't have access to transactional data. So you don't know who actually purchased. You don't have a tracking pixel. You still today, with modern technology, you still can get an idea about how efficient your campaign is, how many additional tickets this campaign sold, and et cetera, et cetera. And if you combine all that together, you can get to a much better understanding of how individual fans behave to certain treatments, so to speak, to different ads, and how you can actually increase ticket sales and get people back. Does it work in real life? Yes, it does. So what we see throughout the industry is that you can increase campaign performance and campaign efficiency by something between 200 and 300% on average. If you apply these logics to really look at what is the data which is really valuable, so behavioral data, to actually look at, yes, people did that, not ask them, but just look at what they actually purchased. And we can understand based on that, these data points, we can understand today why they purchased something. And this is, I think, the very important key takeaway, to understand why certain audiences bought a ticket for this show, but not for the other show, because that is so meaningful for helping and make sure that you actually can increase sales in the end, to make sure you can convince more people to buy a ticket. Yeah. So key takeaway is there's very good data sources today out there which you can use to better understand why people buy. And if you leverage that, you can see throughout the industry that you actually can increase sales for the shows which don't sell out in the first place.
And do you have any like real life scenarios as an example where this has been applied?
Yeah, we work currently with roughly 50 clients throughout the promoters throughout the space, from rock pop tribute shows from Georgia Smith to hip hop and rap artists, and up until to opera and classical music, the whole spectrum of it, including Bundesliga soccer games. So we see that it works throughout the industry, and usually we see that on average, promoters, when we look at the results of all of our campaigns in the last year, on average, ticket sales for the events where our software was used increased by roughly 20%. So the single ticket sales for those events increased by roughly 20%. So you see a meaningful impact on how full is venue is.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions in the audience, and throw them in the chat? I see that people are hearing a lot of background noise on your side, Hannes.
I'm so sorry about that. This is the closest point and so I could find, and it's still very noisy. I'm so sorry about that.
Okay. Does anybody on our panel have questions for Hannes?
No, I guess just jumping in, because I guess everyone had a bit of trouble, listening to properly, because there was unfortunately the surround noise. So probably Hannes, because I've seen it already, when you presented it to us at the in our manager reunion face to face. So probably if you have a short information sheet, a PDF we could circulate later on, I think that would help, because I'm sure more than 50% just got lost due to the noise. you know?
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to put my email address also in the comments here. Whoever's interested, I'm happy to give a proper tour, proper insights, and send out some documentation where you can review as well. Of course, any questions and any kind of feedback, very much looking forward to it. And again, sorry about the bad sound quality.
Thank you. Moving on to Sigrid, who will tell us more about the numbers in the German market.
Yes, thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. I'll share my screen in just a second. Why does it not work? Okay, here we go. I hope you can see everything. Yeah, it's actually quite a coincidence I got into this by short notice, because just today we published our new annual report for 2022 for Germany. And this is the first slide you see here is our so-called Mount Music, showing the long-term development in Germany, turnover development from 1984 to 2022. And as you can see, the physical market in Germany played a very important role for a very long time compared to a lot of other markets. But especially in the past 5 years, that really changed. And yeah, well, audio streaming took over, and the CD slowly, but well, not so slowly anymore, actually, declined. And with a turnover of now more than 2 billion euros, Germany remains fourth largest market worldwide, still behind the United States, Japan, and United Kingdom, and now before China. There used to be place 5, actually France, that was now surpassed by China. Taking a look at some details, especially the market share of the formats, the vast majority, as you can see, of revenues was gained by digital formats, especially audio streaming, which still grew by 14%, not as strong anymore as in past years, but still quite a stable growth. Is now accounting for more than 70% of the market. The CD still second largest format in the German market, but declined once more by more than 17%, but still accounting for almost 13% of the market. And vinyl didn't grow as strongly as in the past years either, actually only by 5.1% last year, and now accounting for 6% market share, but it still contributes an important part to the market overall, and is yeah, third place in the format ranking in Germany. And yeah, overall, the market grew by 6.1% last year, which was not such a strong growth as the year before. The end of 2021, we had a growth of 10%, but still a 6.1 is quite an okay growth, and it is the fourth consecutive growth. So the German market has grown for 4 years now in a row. Taking a look, as I said, physical market remained very strong in Germany, especially the CD for quite a long while. But now I think this picture, this representation pretty well shows how that changed over a period of 10 years. So it's sort of reversed since 2013. So this is what we are facing right now. And when we take a closer look at audio streaming, then you can see the growth from 2013 to now. We have now almost 180 billion streams per year in Germany, and it's a continuous growth as in most countries, obviously, but maybe not as steep as like in the emerging markets, of course. But which I found interesting, Germany is not only the fourth largest market in the world overall, but also on place 4, considering how many people are engaged with paid accounts or paid subscription, 51%, and that's pretty close actually to Sweden and UK and United States. I think it doesn't look too bad there. And if you take a look from the other side, 31% of people in Germany are using paid account versus 15% using ad finance access. So that's, yeah, the number is doubled. So that's what audio streaming looks like in 2022. And just a couple of days before Record Store Day on Saturday, I thought it might be nice to take a quick, bit closer look at vinyl sales. On the left hand, you can see turnover, and vinyl is the orange part. So it's still growing. And as I said before, it didn't grow as strongly as in the years before, but still by 5%. But it's interesting, the sales, the pieces sold actually fell. There was a slight decline. It fell by 6%, which I think we didn't really expect, but that is probably also due to not having enough capacities, production capacities, and yeah, but still, I mean, it's just a slight decline, and I think we will be seeing growth next year. At least the vinyl sales will probably remain pretty much stable. Music consumption, the ways and genres. Last year, probably not much of a surprise. Radio is a very strong way for people in Germany to listen to music, as well as audio streaming. And here, especially, it's actually streaming, audio streaming, no surprise, having in mind the figures I referred to before. And taking a look at the genres, also probably not much of a surprise. Pop is the most popular genre in Germany. And 3 years ago, it was surpassed by second was used to be for a very long time rock music. But for 3 years in a row now, hip hop or rap is second in the German music market for fans, and then followed by rock. So there has been actually a paradigm shift 3 years ago, but now this seems to be pretty much stable at the moment. So pop, hip hop, and then rock. And the prognosis for 2025 is that in 3 years or 2 years from now, there will still be market growth up to 2.4 billion euros turnover, with audio streaming earning more than 2 billion euros alone. So it's a prognosis, but in the last years, the market experts have been proven right, also for this year, where they said that we will be growing and past the 2 billion euros mark. So here we are, as they predicted, and yeah, let's just wait and see where we'll be 2 years from now. And this is yeah, a very quick insight and very quick run through some key figures of the German music market.
And do you know why CDs specifically are still such a big number in sales?
Yeah, I think people have, we've been discussing this for quite a while, and it was actually kind of a surprise for me as well when I started this job 8 years ago, that Japan and Germany are very CD-affine markets. And I think we figure this is due to people being very reluctant towards credit card payment, online payment, for example, and they're being rather conservative there and careful. But this has now really changed, and very likely also in the last 2 or 3 years due to the pandemic. Because there was not much opportunity to go into record stores. And so now this is really speeding up. But yeah, that's one reason, probably the main reason why it stayed very strong for a long time. And also because maybe Germans in some ways conservative, or yeah.
Someone in the chat asked if you have any idea what alt folk or acoustic looks like as part of the mix of statistics and genres.
Okay, we can jump back to that slide. It's art, you have folk music, and this is maybe close to art folk. So they can see it's not a very strong segment. It's less than 1%. Yeah, it's but also as you can see, a couple of years ago, like for example, classic or jazz was much stronger. This is now seeing yeah, steep decline actually. Yeah. And so there's yeah.
On the streaming services, do you have any idea which ones are the dominant ones? Is it is there like one that's above all the others, or they're very equal in usage?
I think Spotify is probably the most popular in Germany, followed by Apple and Amazon and Deezer. But as a European service also, I mean, Spotify is a European service as well. But I think, yeah, it's actually, as far as I know, the one that's used the most by most people.
Anton and Tessy, as music managers, do you see the genres? Do you see the same representation in the live sector?
Okay, leading, I just start, Anton, and then you can follow up. I'm sure you have more insight. I think, yeah, on the live side, if I see here, they're leading with 24%, yes. Hip hop as well, because I'm sure we talk about this later as well, because German hip hop is at the moment really a huge part of our music scene. And I'm just surprised as well about the small percentage of Schlager. I thought they would be bigger, because it feels bigger, because some of our, probably they cross over into the pop section partly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's exactly the case.
Yeah. Because it feels like, especially so many of our huge artists like the Helene Fischers and co. For me, it's Schlager, but it's obviously here in the pop section, because it must be. Yeah, Anton, sorry.
Yeah, I actually think the same with hip hop. I mean, there's artists who are like just so crossover with pop. I mean, like, I think an artist like Apache, who's like one of the biggest German artists, I think he, in this statistic, he counts as pop, but he comes from hip hop. So I think when you look at the market in Germany, it sometimes feels like rap and hip hop is everywhere. And like, it sometimes really feels like it's the biggest genre. And also Schlager, I think, is much bigger than like a statistic like this represents. And as far as life goes, I think we really have to take the effects of the pandemic into account. So when live music finally opened up in the beginning of 22, and like with some limitations also before, it was actually mainly young people who went to shows. So a lot of the big selling rap artists were actually the ones who did best live, because young people didn't have the reservations that like people in the age group of like 35 plus had with going to shows. So the live landscape definitely changed quite a bit. It might rebound a little bit starting this year, but we can definitely still see the effects of the pandemic in the demographics of people going to live shows.
And with these genres, with pop and hip hop, for example, would you say that the majority of that is German language music, or is there a clear mix of international artists as well?
Oh, in Germany, well, it's most of it is, or I think the German market is at the moment definitely dominated by non-German language music. But, and especially in the radio, in the area of radio, there's among the top 100, there was last year no German language title. So that's quite amazing, actually. I mean, there has never been much played on radio stations by radio stations, but this is now that was a negative record last year. But in the single and album charts, we have about 1/3 to in the single charts is German language music, and in the album charts, it's more than half. More than 50%. So the album charts, there more German-speaking artists are more popular, and there. But I think that the majority of music listened to in Germany is English language or not German language music. But it's still, I mean, 1/3 average, for example, 1/3 to 40% in the single charts and album charts is not too bad. I mean, and could be reflected more by the radio stations.
Yeah, but I think I completely agree what Sigrid says about the radio stations, because this is one of the big topics we all, as well as associations and, you know, everyone is fighting for, because apart from a German language, it's as well newcomers. So it's a lot. We have a big radio problem, but I think especially this not having one German language song in the top 100 is a good signal here for everyone listening from outside of Germany, because you definitely bring mainly, I think, English bands over here, or French or Italian. So could be an advantage, you know, for you, as the radio stations here don't play.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Do you feel it's the same with the venues and the festivals?
I don't know if you're asking me. I would say, well, no, I guess it's not the same. But Tessy, maybe I think you can do that better than me.
I try, but I think no, it has. You can't compare this to the radio situation, because everyone, and especially German acts and German-speaking acts, and especially the young ones, like Anton already said, they're touring like crazy. They try everything they can. So this is a very mixed, for sure. We as well appreciate all the big international acts coming over, where we can pay 150 euros per show. We all love that. But no, I think this is a very mixed. I don't have any percentages here, but venues are, you know, they want to sell tickets, so they don't care. And if it's a huge streaming act, or especially German hip hop act, they're doing amazingly live.
And do any of you know of any successful cases where a German act, a German language act, has been successful in other countries in recent years?
With the German language?
Yes.
Okay, I was once running a department international in the Sony world, so there are always some little examples, you know, where we had a German one that made, you know, a bit of noise in Japan, or sometimes, you know, it's a bit of crossing over to Denmark, or here for sure Austria, Switzerland are German speaking, but with German language making it really big time, from the end of the 90s from Nena, 99 Luftballons, which then made it as well in the English version. But I think not any of my colleagues, does anyone pops up the German?
I mean, very few bands after Rammstein, I guess, were really successful with German language music. I mean, it's a bit of a niche example, but maybe not. There's this rave band from Berlin called Brutalismus 3000. I don't know if people are familiar with them. They come from the techno scene, and some of their songs are in German, and they're like really big, both in Germany and international, because like in the electronic music scene, because they really sort of embody what people imagine Berlin to be like, the Berlin club scene, nightlife. And so they have some songs in German that are doing really well on streaming, and they're also playing like live quite a bit. They're playing like Primavera Festival and selling out a European tour right now. So that's one example. It's definitely not on like a Rammstein level, but it's also not insignificant.
Someone in the chat asked, do you think Brexit has had an effect on gig bookings, radio plays, and audience consumption of music from UK artists?
Okay, I start. I think, okay, on radio, etc. I don't think there's any impact. We all still here love, what's coming from the UK. I'm sure, and me being as well here more close as well to the colleagues in the UK through the MMF and hearing their discussions, etc. So it's more difficult for them coming over. So that's as well then, and as well venues here don't want to pay more, but it costs them more to come over. So it was made much more difficult for any UK artist, and as well for European artists going to the UK as well. It didn't make it easier. So, but consumption wise, we still listen to it, and we would still love to have them all coming over playing, but we saw a lot of cancellations and not postponements. So during Corona, they got for sure postponed, but then including Brexit and increase of costs, etc., I'm sure a lot of bands don't make it over in the near future. So they make it easier in the UK for them to come over.
From my perspective, like also to give some context, I mostly speak from like an indie perspective, not like a major perspective. But when I talk to people, I think a lot of the effects, we will just see a lot of the effects, like we're just getting started, because you talk to a lot of people in the music business, they are definitely shifting their attention more and more away from like UK artists over to mainland Europe artists. For example, a lot of European booking agencies have started to sign more bands with EU passports because it's just much easier to tour. And a lot of people have shifted their offices, their workforce over to mainland Europe. So I feel like we'll see the effects in the coming years. And I think one of the effects of Brexit definitely is that I think London won't just be the one big music city in Europe anymore, like it is at the moment, or like it was a few years ago, like the one trendsetter, the city where most of the industry is. I think that has shifted over the years and will shift even more. So I think a lot of the effects will be noticed in the future. So, but I definitely think it has an effect.
And on that specifically, do you see a shift to specific cities in Germany, for example, like, or is that just, do you just see it in Berlin, or do you see it in other cities as well, in the indie scene specifically?
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the effects of the last years. I mean, even though I am from Berlin, I always really enjoyed that Germany was quite multipolar in terms of the cities, that we have different cities with different scenes and companies, but like in the last 10 years, everything has shifted to Berlin. All the big companies have moved their offices, headquarters to Berlin. Again, like for Berlin, this is pretty good. I think it's definitely becoming a major music city, even like outside of the electronic music world. but there's definitely been like a major like brain drain from like Cologne, for example. There's still like definitely industry in Hamburg and some in Munich, but Berlin has become like the one big city.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that, and especially in the last like 5 years maybe. And it's definitely not only German artists from other German cities moving to Berlin, but as Anton said, there's actually a vast majority of people from all countries of the world. That, and it has been like that for a long time, but it's now really intensified over the last couple of years. Yeah, there's a lot of, it's a real shift to Berlin, absolutely.
And also into like, just speaking from the industry I work with, a lot of international indie labels have opened up offices in Berlin in recent years. That's a new development. So like Secretly Group has an office in Berlin now. Partisan Records has an office in Berlin now. There's been offices for Ninja Tunes and Domino before. So so that's I think that's because these bigger indie companies also see how important it is to be on the ground in Germany. And that's why they opened these offices to be more closer to the population here.
And also from what I hear, the funding institutions like Music Board in Berlin was like overrun in this last funding round for funding. They had like more than 700 people applying for funding, and only could like pay funding to 39 artists. So there's, and this has never been that much as far as I hear. So that's really also shows that many more people are here, over here, being creative in Germany, which is great, but you can see it in those figures, and it cannot actually be, there's not enough money to hand out funding to everyone.
So for the music managers that are tuned in, what would be the a good way to break in the German market with an international act? Anybody?
Okay, I start then. Yeah, it's mainly like in every other market, but as we already mentioned, radio situation, first of all, as well, radio promotion is extremely expensive over here, so I wouldn't, start that. I think the best always start is to start playing live, find a good support slots, play little shows here and there. Find your, a good promoter. If you already have an agent in another market, let them propose, good promoters over here. Try to get even smaller afternoon slot at the festivals. Ideally as well, if you already made your homework at home, so if there's something to tell, so come with some news over here so that people can talk about it, no matter how weird they are from whatever country they are. Collaboration is always great. If you find a German act you can feature on or collaborate with, probably even then going on tour together. Find as well there, I think there was as well anyway on your list, but the right PR person. There's not much, it's not like in the UK or even France, we don't have that many blogs or here, or as well press, so just a few. So as well bring results from your country, but then here as well get a good PR person that's spreading the word. Get your your little team together, and ideally you haven't signed a worldwide deal with your label wherever you're from, so better find the one that's really enthusiastic and support you in this market here, because as you saw, we're big. You can make some really good money here, but I think it's as well, you shouldn't waste all the money up front. So start really playing live, find your ambassadors, get as well the PR person, probably as well feeding them special German social media pages, and learn a few German words, because the German crowd is always, when you're French or Italian or English and you stand on stage and just do 2 German words, they're freaking out. I don't know why, but they're freaking out. So it just gets them, because they appreciate the effort.
Anton, do you think that's is that similar in indie music?
Yeah. A lot of, I mean, Tessy has already basically said most of what I would have said. From a manager's perspective, I would definitely also focus on like showcase festivals such as Reeperbahn or CO Pop, even if you don't have an act play. If you do have an act play, even better, then you have something to talk about. But if not, go there. That's your chance to meet most of the German music industry at once. You can like, yeah, look up the directory of delegates attending, make meetings, go to the receptions and mixes, and sort of like for me, this is definitely an approach to tackling new markets is the personal relationships with people who I can see understand the kind of music we work with. And I think Reeperbahn is a really, really good place. It really has established itself as kind of like the main showcase festival in Germany, kind of like the Great Escape in Brighton, Eurosonic in Groningen, South by Southwest. And if you already have like a team set up in other territories and you really want to make an effort to make it in Germany, again, definitely the collaboration thing extremely important, but also get your team in line and tell everyone on the team Germany is like an important market for you. Maybe you already signed to a publisher. Maybe they have a sub-publisher in place in Germany. Maybe the sub-publisher can help you. And so there's always people who you can involve in your campaign if you really want to tackle, and then obviously spend on marketing in Germany. There's many different ways. There's definitely not one solution, but I think if you yeah, take care of all these things, being there on the ground, get teams ready, collaborate. If you do all of these things, if you understand how your music can work in Germany, then I think you do have a good chance of getting an audience here. And yeah, live is definitely important.
And in terms of PR, are there any like big players in magazines or other media that are important for managers or artists to focus on? Like uniquely German ones.
Yeah, we do have some music magazines left. There's like Musik Express, there's a German Rolling Stone. There's definitely niche magazines for like different genres, for like electronic music genre. There's like still some like gothic magazines, there's metal magazines, there's Visions, like a rock magazine. But it's really hard to say, even for me, to be honest, it's very, very hard to say how much of an impact they still have. Especially for like a younger audience. I think no judgment here, but I think like with an audience of like 40 plus, I think if you're in a lot of these magazines, then it definitely can still have an impact on their consumption decisions. But for like a younger audience, I feel it's definitely a lot about like playlisting, to a certain extent radio. But yeah, social media and playlisting is I think where like the younger audience finds their new music. But we still have like an okay amount of print magazines in Germany.
And I would add actually that the daily newspapers like Süddeutsche, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, and the regular German press has actually a lot of feuilleton. And I think there are artists that really, really work well on the feuilleton. So next, or besides the music, the trades and the music press, that's always a good address for certain artists as well to take a look at.
Someone asked a question, can you elaborate on opportunities for German music producers and songwriters to run successful international careers like Q-Beats? How German branches of major publishers and foreign management companies like Electric Feel Europe are doing on developing German talents abroad? Anybody?
I feel Q-Beats is like just a very interesting example that I think is very hard to replicate. And I feel like they just had really, really good connections online with American producers and managed to get their beats and like pieces into their beats and productions. but the major publishers that are based in Berlin on like a songwriting and production level are very much connected to international companies, and they definitely collaborate a lot with international artists on a songwriting. There's so many songwriting camps in Germany all the time, so there's definitely a lot of collaboration actually on that level as well.
And on doing for the managers again, on doing business with Germany, we already mentioned a little bit about people might be a little conservative with online payment and such. What are some cultural nuances to be aware of when you do business with Germany?
I saw that on the list. I can't really, we are not Japanese, or so we're Europeans. I couldn't really think of any specific behavior you have to put, it's always good to be on time, but I'm as well sometimes alone, even alongside my German colleagues. But I think there's no real specialty. And what I anyway want to mention, no matter what questions popping up here as well of good PR companies or whatever, this is why we're here, in EMA and all the local associations. We should, and I include myself, because I sometimes always think I can do everything myself and I can figure it out, but let us use more the network, reach out to someone, ask in another country, some of your colleagues know any of our contacts if it comes to Germany, or later on to any other markets, but we should just, network more and ask, because that's what we are here for, because no one can know everyone. So
I agree. It's a good point. I think one, just from traveling abroad, having a lot to do with people from other countries, I think one thing that people need to understand about Germans is that we definitely like being very open and straight. We don't like emails that are kind of like shifting around what you're actually trying to say. Germans love direct answers, and they usually don't get mad at you if you're being frank, and that's definitely a cultural difference. There's a lot of Germans, when they get these really polite emails from like British people, they're just like, why don't they just tell me what they actually want to say? That's maybe one cultural difference I noticed in the past, that Germans don't mind.
That's an important
clear-cut answer.
We have a little bit more time for questions from the audience. So if anybody has questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask it, or ask it in the chat. Anybody? No. Then I have another last question. We just talked about it, networking with Germany. What are some of the industry associations or networks that can support artists or managers with doing business in Germany? Like, where can people find more information on how to work with Germany specifically?
I work a lot with the VUT, the Verband Unabhängiger TonträgerUnternehmerInnen. That's the indie association of Germany, and they also have like a directory of independent music companies in Germany. They can be really, really helpful. In Berlin, there's, for example, Berlin Music Commission, which is a network of Berlin-based music companies, and they usually also like to connect people with the Berlin music industry. So that's maybe also one thing. So.
And yes, of course, the BVMI, which is the sister of the VUT. I mean, we're representing the major companies, the record companies in Germany, and we're Berlin-based, and we're very happy to help if anyone has any questions concerning the German market. We are obviously, I mean, we are also a networking association, but basically we can provide addresses if you like, or connect it to some to an enterprise, to a label. So just get in touch. And then also for Berlin, as I said before, the music board, Anton mentioned that before, and also the Berlin Music Commission, Berlin Club Commission, and those are in Berlin, very helpful organizations. And then the BWMI is also part of the Forum Musikwirtschaft. It's not an umbrella, but it's an association of several associations. If just get in touch with one of us or send me an email, and I'll be really happy to help. Tessy and the IMUC, your German association, is also part of the Forum Musikwirtschaft. So there's very close connections, and yeah, many helpful people or people willing to help that way.
Yeah, one thing I also just remembered, like if you ever go into like any of the showcase festivals, there's also Initiative Musik, which is the main funding body in Germany, but they also kind of function as a role of a music export office like other countries have. And they usually do networking events at these international showcasing festivals, connecting international delegates with the German music industry. So like if you ever happen to be at like, and Music Board does the same for Berlin. So if you're at like Great Escape, Eurosonic, like usually try and like watch out for the Initiative Musik events there. They can put you in touch with the German delegates present.
We have a question from Wally.
Yeah, I've raised that question also in the chat. So
Yeah, I answered that one already. Well, to the coming this week.
Sorry?
The Emma Manager Networks.
Yeah, because just maybe it's good to share that with everyone on the call, because everyone might not be aware. You can share it, but because networking is a key thing, building the relationships, and maybe you should explain to everyone on the call what the Emma networking is going to entail. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. We as Emma are starting network groups of 4 genres: pop, rock, metal, hip hop, R&B, and what is the other one? Sorry, forgetting. Electronic and dance, sorry. And we you can sign up through our website to join one of these networks. We are going to connect European managers with each other so that they can work on networking with each other, and can also work on common issues that they find in the industry throughout Europe, so they can kind of strengthen their position. So if you want to sign up for that, you can go to our website and do so. And groups for other genres will follow in the future as well. We have to start somewhere. Yuna has a question as well.
Hello. I was interested in especially about the advertising channels, because I constantly run an advertising campaign on YouTube to the German music market, and I have gotten a lot of positive results from that campaign. But I'm interested in any like country-specific online advertising platforms that may not be immediately apparent to the international audience. So are there any like advertising placements that we should pay attention to that are not like the biggest ones, like YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or something like that?
It's pretty similar. I think the differentiation is more in demographics than in countries, I feel. And Germany is very similar. The only difference, like if you talk to people from America, like Twitter in Germany is like definitely not very relevant as opposed to the US. But in terms of like other social media, it's very similar. Young people use TikTok, slightly older people use Instagram, older than that use Facebook. YouTube's kind of across the board. So I think it's pretty similar to other countries, I feel.
I agree. It's just, and if you have older audience, or depending if there's still some print magazines, you can, do selected print ads still, if it makes sense for your audience, for your target group, or as well, billboards around the city where you play live, or, smaller ones. But agree what Anton says, social media wise, it's, I think, like everywhere else. the key platforms. I don't get a German specific one in mind. Sorry.
What I thought, but just wanted to check.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have. I want to thank you all for being here. And we will email everybody, all the attendees, the information that we've discussed, like the links and the links that have also been dropped by all of you in the chat. We will organize them all and send them to everybody. So thank you again. Thanks everybody for coming. And our next market spotlight will be on May 18th, and we'll focus on the UK. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for having
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.